Day bow bow.
Life moves pretty quickly.
Day bow bow.
If you don't pay attention, it could slip right through your fingers.
Close enough.
For having watched this movie just last night, I should have done better. Oh, well.
Good. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. This is Afterthoughts, a podcast where we talk about our first and second impressions of movies, along with a related topic. This week, we are talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Perhaps maybe the 80s movie.
Perhaps. That's a big perhaps.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. If it's not, we'll talk about it.
Also, for whatever reason, whenever I hear this movie, in my head, I always add big. Ferris Bueller's Big Day Off.
What? That sounds like some 90s kids movie that you're ripping that from.
Yeah, it does. I don't know which one.
It probably is.
I think it is.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I think it is.
We'll Google it later.
Sure, yeah. That's awesome. Oh, man. Yeah, Ferris Bueller, John Hughes. His great 80s Chicago movie. I would say it's like a Chicago movie alongside of it's an 80s movie.
Mm-hmm. 2 in 1, some would say.
Man, when did you first watch this movie?
I feel like I say this more and more on this podcast, but I think I saw it later than most people saw it. I think a lot of people saw it at least by middle school. And I don't think I saw it till late in high school, maybe even early college. It was pretty late for me to see this movie.
I see.
At least to sit down and actually watch it. It may have been like on TV or something sometime, but to actually sit down and watch it was much later for me. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know if this is true for you too, but it's like before I ever saw it, I knew of it. Mm-hmm. Like it somehow was everywhere. Like I could recognize images from it. I could even recognize quotes or like scenes from it, but I'd never seen the movie until like high school. But it was like in our culture. Like this movie was huge, and it always seemed like it had like this big aura of like respect. Everyone loved that movie. It was like, especially like when you're in high school, it's like this was a great movie for high school kids to love and sort of put on a pedestal.
Absolutely. It was everywhere.
It's just like it's this movie is like pure high school fantasy.
I know. Yeah. I definitely,
which is probably what is such a cool thing about it.
And I remember everyone wanted to watch it all the time. It was just one of those movies that people were like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, let's do it.
Let's do it, yeah.
Also, my economics teacher referenced it all the time. He'd go, Bueller, and then talk about voodoo economics. So there's that.
Great. What do you think of John Hughes in general?
I like all his movies. He's great. I don't see much wrong with him. I mean, they're very 80s, what I have seen, because they're all from the 80s. And
yeah, like his big ones are definitely the 80s ones for sure. Mm-hmm. I love the guy. Yeah. At some point in high school when I decided that I wanted to start screenwriting, he was one of the people I looked up to a lot because you know I was in high school and he wrote like serious high school pieces, and they were always taken very seriously with a lot of care. Not to say that they weren't humorous as well, because that's also a big part of what he does, but I just really liked that he was like a filmmaker that was taken seriously telling high school stories. So I've always had a great respect for the guy. Plus, you know, Community is one of my favorite shows ever, and the pilot is very much inspired by John Hughes, you know, so it's even dedicated to him because I think he died the year that Community was coming out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I like the guy.
Interesting.
What was your first impression of Ferris Bueller when you actually sat down and watched it?
Well, now you're going to find out something else I thought generally of John Hughes. I was not impressed.
Whoa!
I know. As with most times I first saw John Hughes movies, I didn't see what all the hype was about.
It is. Yeah. I mean, in this, like, if you were growing up at any point outside of the 80s, I think this movie was hyped so much. Mm-hmm. It's hard to sort of meet those expectations.
Yeah. And it's just like a guy skipping school, and he doesn't really even do that much. That was my thing. I was like, the parade scene's pretty cool, okay, but outside of that, you're kind of just doing some stuff.
You sound a lot like Cameron to me. I hate to break it to you.
Did you just call me Cameron?
Yeah.
Like from the movie Cameron?
Yeah.
Good, because Cameron's my favorite, so...
Like the scene in the cab where he's like, I haven't seen that much. And Ferris is like, what? We saw everything.
Well, I take that as a compliment.
All right, fine.
What do you think?
No, okay, Deb. Here's the thing. I wasn't disappointed, but I also was kind of like, oh, this is it. This is the movie that everybody has been talking about for so long. And I liked it. I thought it was really fun. I remember like having a smile on my face for most of the movie because it's just all these like fun things going on. And a lot of it is like, oh, that's where that's from. It's been referenced so many times in so many other things. And I'm finally seeing the scene that it came from. So there was a lot of that. But on some level, I was like, huh, that's it. That's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't like blown away by it.
That's also how I felt about The Breakfast Club, too. That was another one that was super hyped, and I was like, this is it?
Okay, so I'm gonna to disagree with you there. I wrote down overall I like Ferris Bueller a lot. I like this movie a lot, but it has never been like my go-to 80s movie that I want to see when I want to watch an 80s movie, like how The Breakfast Club is for me. Like for me, it's like Breakfast Club and it's Back to the Future. If I want to see 80s movies, it's going to be one of those two.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That was overall my general opinion, though. It really just felt like some people just going around doing some stuff for me. When I first saw it, I just wasn't that interested. It was kind of funny. But it wasn't even the funniest. Still, I even think this in my second impression.
Whoa, spoilers.
But it's in my first impression too. But just that Ferris Bueller isn't like, because he's kind of like the, how do you describe him? Kind of like the cool kid, I'm just going to do whatever I want. But he doesn't even really feel like that much. I don't know. Like I could pick out characters that portray that character, maybe not better because... who's to say that one's better than the other, but more aggressively, I suppose. And Ferris Bueller's just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on Ferris Bueller. But
that's interesting.
Yeah.
In my first impression, I was very surprised that, I don't know if this is true, but it felt like there was not very much plot. Like it felt sort of aimless, and it felt like, this is pure high school fantasy, and that's all it's going to attempt to be. It's just going to be like this fun sort of daydream, and your daydreams aren't super well like structured in terms of plot or character development. So the first time I watched it, I just kind of was like, okay, this is just kind of like a slice of life. It's harmless fun, but it's not compelling story.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Well, felt first time I saw it. It was pretty underwhelming for me. I still didn't think it was bad. Because we don't pick bad movies for this podcast, obviously.
Never.
But yeah, it was underwhelming compared to all the hype that was surrounding it for sure.
Yeah. Should we move on to that second?
Let's do it.
Well, first of all, how many times have you seen this movie?
Over the years, I want to say probably 4. I think last night was my 4th.
Yeah, I think I'm about the same. Yeah. But this watching it this week was the first time that I had seen it in a long time.
Right.
Like probably years for sure.
Same for me.
What'd you think?
I loved it.
Nice.
It was wonderful.
It is.
I still don't think it's my go-to number 1 80s movie, but it definitely is awesome for sure. I'm not as big of a baby anymore. Oh, they're not doing anything, but no, it was awesome. I loved Cameron. I really still don't like Ferris Bueller that much. He's kind of a jerk, but
I wrote down, is Ferris Bueller a jerk? ?
Yeah, I think
we can talk about it later.
I mean, he kind of sort of redeems himself at the end, but still so. I still kind of think he's a jerk, but I loved Cameron, and I loved just everything that happens in the movie. It's really interesting. I honestly love him talking to the audience too. That was, they don't do that. And I don't know, I guess I just didn't, I mean, I know I knew that happened the first time I watched it, obviously, but I didn't care for it that much back then. But now it's like, that's really cool. I like that he's talking to me, like in the middle of this movie, stopping to talk to me. That's a bold move, and I like it.
Yeah, man. I never disliked the movie, but this time around I was like, oh yeah, I love this movie. And I think it's because I've seen it once or twice. I know what's coming, and it was like, oh yeah, I remember this. I was like remembering parts of the movie I had seen before, and I was just like delighted to see these moments unfold again. So I think to the point where like I think this probably would be one of my go-to 80s movies now. I really really enjoyed it. And it was like, yeah, that's why this movie holds the weight that it does, because it is what it is, and it's so fun. And I do think there is like a legitimate story and plot here, and there are some emotional moments that I never really picked up on before, which is like insane. I don't know how I missed it the first couple of times, but it's so good. I wonder if, the further we get from high school, the more we're going to like this movie.
I know.
I liked it a lot.
There are still some exaggerated parts that I don't necessarily think I like. For example, the dean of students. I can't stand his story plot. Like, who would go to such lengths for one student? You have a whole student body. I get that they kind of throw in that little thing like, oh, Ferris Bueller's act is going to throw off the whole student body. Whatever. It's ridiculous what he does. He trespasses on property. I get it's for like humor, but oh my goodness. It was a little too much for me.
Yeah, he's ridiculous.
And one of my main things, I still don't know how I feel about it since I just watched it last night, but the scene where Cameron's like finally opening up about everything and just like saying how he's going to stand up to his dad, but then the car actually falls. I kind of feel like that undercuts the scene, and I still don't know how I feel about it, because then they come back from it again after that, but it really does feel like everything he just said was undercut by then destroying the car just for like a kind of another laugh. So I don't know how I feel about that particular scene, but whatever.
My gut reaction is that I don't know if I agree. I don't think it undercuts it. I think it's sort of like he opens up and he's like, yeah, I'm going to take the blame for this. I'm going to take responsibility for this. And then the car gets knocked over and it's like, wait, are you still going to take responsibility for it? Like, even now, it's gotten even more worse than you could imagine. And now are you still going to take the fall for it? And the fact that he does to me was like, okay, all right. And it is, I guess, in terms of like the structure of that scene, it might feel a little clunky, but I'm okay with it because to me, it's like just another way to affirm that he is going to grow up and take the heat for it. Yeah. Plus, I like the exchange between him and Ferris afterwards a lot. Mm-hmm.
I like that exchange too, and that's why I think it kind of makes up for it. But just I don't know how. I think it's just how it unfolds. It just feels like it's kind of just there for another laugh, and I don't really like that in that particular moment. Maybe they're trying to lighten the mood because it's not supposed to be that kind of movie. But I kind of wish it was right there at the end. I wish that whole scene was kind of just that specific part for the movie. No funny business.
It's like the rug is like being pulled right underneath you at a time when you think, okay, we're going to be good. Yeah. Like right before it is like, okay, good. Here we are, we're landing. And then one last sort of push. And
I'm sure some people are fine with it. Most people probably. Everyone loves this movie. Yeah. But I don't know. That particular one doesn't sit super well with me. But that's just a particular, so. Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I was struck by in this time, and it's a thought that like people have had, and I've even heard it, but I'd never really sort of like identified with this idea until I watched this movie. But this is like, it's called Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but this is Cameron's movie. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like it is his story. Absolutely. And I've heard that, but I never really like put two and two together, not until this time that I was like, yeah, everything that is happening, it's Ferris's idea, but it's not until Cameron decides to do it that the plot moves forward. He's making all of the decisions that advance the plot, and it's his growth and development that is what makes the movie emotional. Like, it's crazy to me that I never realized this is totally Cameron's story. And even though it's not, it's called Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Because I guess the first time around, since I was back in high school, I really didn't pay too much attention to their character growth or what the characters were doing. I just wanted to watch a movie. But now watching it, absolutely. I think that this is totally Cameron's movie. And Ferris Bueller is kind of just a catalyst for what is happening to Cameron.
There is a line at the end where Sloane is like, you woke up this morning and you knew exactly what you were doing. And I've always wondered, is she inferring that, like, he did this whole thing for Cameron? Do you take it that way?
I could have meant that. I think it's just how you want to interpret that line. But yeah.
Yeah. Because in that respect, if that really is what that means, and that's what Ferris had in mind this whole time, then I think he's like a hero in a sense.
Yeah.
And it sort of makes up for the moments where it's like, is Ferris sort of a jerk? Is he this sort of selfish character, that we sympathize for because he's like, he's sort of embodying high school angst and oppression or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, no, if he's sort of doing everything that he's doing to help out his friend, and he's sort of genuinely trying to have him open up, then he's like this hero. It's like a great thing.
Yeah. The only other thing I could think it means is that scene where both of Sloane and Cameron are saying, like, what do you want to do? And neither of them know, even though they're going to college. But it seems like Ferris just, like, does what he wants to do, and that's it, and doesn't really care about much else. That's the only thing I could think. But that obviously wouldn't have as much impact as if he had done the whole day for Cameron.
Yeah.
But I still don't know. It's hard to say, because there's a lot of things that Ferris also does just for himself. Like spreading the rumors about his disease, that has nothing to do with Cameron.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
It's a fine line, I would say. I really think that line's just how you want to interpret it.
And I wonder, like, if even if you don't sort of catch on to it the first time you watch it, that it's not really a movie about Ferris. It's more of a movie about Cameron. But even if you sort of only are getting that subconsciously, I wonder if everybody's okay with this main character who doesn't have, like, a main goal or aspiration. He just wants to skip school. He just wants to bamboozle everyone. He steals things. He's taking advantage of people. He's manipulating people. I wonder if, like, we're all okay with that because subconsciously we know he's not the main character, and because on some level he is doing all this terrible stuff, but he's not really doing anything too harmful. You could argue that, but I think the majority of the stuff he does, the antics he pulls, they're not super, like, he's not doing drugs, he's not drinking, he's not hurting people physically. He's just sort of manipulating people to get his way.
Yeah. And
it's kind of interesting of like the way that the movie is constructed so that we can all support a quote unquote main character who is the way he is. Mm-hmm. Did you find it more funny this time around?
I would say so.
Yeah.
It's still not the most hilarious movie, but I think it was funnier than when I saw it in high school. Yeah,
this might have been the most I've laughed at it. And I watched it by myself. It's like not super common to laugh a lot out loud by yourself when you're watching something, but I totally did.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I just really enjoyed it. I think maybe because, like, the further away you get from it, the more sort of like stereotypically 80s it feels. And it's kind of fun in that way. It, like, really indulges in its own time, and it feels great to watch that now.
So I'm still interested in the, like, Ferris being a jerk. So it pretty much revolves around the car, I would say, obviously.
Okay.
But so you think him, like, guilting him into taking his dad's Ferrari was still all for his good? Because just the way he does it and, like, just, like, guilts him into it, because
he just takes off.
Like, I know people who, like, did stuff like that in high school, and it bugged me. It's like, I don't want to do this, but then they would just, like, do it anyways, and then, like, I'll be like, okay, we'll do it, and just go along. But do you think he was really, like, that's what bugged me the most. Sure. But do you still think he's doing that, like, for Cameron's good, and do you think that makes up for it, or do you really think he's just doing it to drive a Ferrari?
Well, the thing that makes me okay with it is like what you said. There are guys like that. Like, I knew people like that, so it makes him feel real in that moment for me. And I'm like, yeah, that is what someone in his position would do. And in retrospect, I do think that he is on some level trying to help Cameron, like, open up and have some fun. Like, he feels like Cameron is not enjoying the life that he has, the life that he could be living right now. Yeah. So I do think on some level, I think it's both. I think that he is being selfish, but he's also thinking, well, this will work and it helps me. and it helps Cameron. So in Ferris's mind, it's like, of course we're going to do this. It makes sense on every level. Yeah. And I'm going to start driving now because there's no other option.
There's nothing else we can do. Doesn't he say that? I'm pretty sure he said.
Yeah.
This is the only way.
One thing I wondered about the car, it's not really a big deal, but was there ever a point where you really could just like drive the car in reverse and that would take the miles off of it?
No.
That's not a real thing, right?
Absolutely not a real thing.
All right. I was wondering, like, in the 80s, was that a thing? No way.
But if I'm absolutely wrong, please tweet at us and tell me I'm wrong. But I'm 100% positive that you could never reverse the miles off.
Every time anyone would reverse, they would be taking miles off their car.
That's you've funny. Still driven the miles. That doesn't make any sense.
That's so funny.
Because then you could just sell a 300,000 mile car for a brand new once you reverse all the miles off. That's ridiculous. No.
How do you feel about like all the stuff they do in the city? Like, if you as a high school kid, would that be like a fun day for you? Like going to a nice fancy restaurant, going to a baseball game, the parade, going to the Sears Tower, like
still has kind of just been the same thing for me. Like when I first saw it, they're just kind of doing stuff. I still feel like that. They're still just doing normal things. They don't really do anything that crazy for a day off. Like nothing
except for the parade.
Except for the parade. The parade's pretty crazy, but
yeah.
Other than that, it's just going to a fancy restaurant, going to a tower to see the city, just normal things. And it didn't bother me as much that they just did normal things, but still, it wasn't the most spectacular day off, I would suppose. Like, if I wanted to write a movie about a day off, I would write in some crazy stuff. But that's not what this movie's about, I don't really think. No, what I used to think it was about, it's not about, so.
Yeah. And the thing that struck me by it this time around was, like, that all that stuff that they do, it's kind of what I would want to do now as an adult.
Yeah.
It's probably not what I would want to do as a high school student. Like, I didn't care about seeing the city or like experiencing the culture of the city as a high school student. I just my day off would have been like, let's go like to the movies. Let's go to the arcade. Let's play games. It's like all the stuff that high school kids care about. So on that level, it was kind of interesting. Like that seems like something that I would want to do now.
Maybe that's just what 80s high school kids wanted to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe 80s kids were more sophisticated.
Also, forgot about this. I love how his one explanation for him being able to delete his attendance is that he has a computer.
Yes, that's pretty awesome.
Did no one in the 80s have a computer? I'm sure this is a genuine thing. I'm sure no one really had a computer, so that's not possibly an easy thing to do. Oh, I have a computer, so I can just go in and delete my attendance at my school. I'm assuming people didn't have a computer and thought that was like a genuine, if I get a computer, I can delete it.
I can do that.
Like no one knew that that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Unless it was. Unless 80s computers just all connected to each other. Maybe I'm the dumb one here.
I totally, when we cut to Ferris, I was really expecting like not a legit sort of explanation, but something more than just I have a computer. But it's pretty funny to hear him say that and realize, that's the only excuse.
I was like, did you get the codes to get in or anything? Like, is there any other explanation? No, you just have a computer. Cool. Yeah. Also, towards the beginning of the movie, I was wondering, because there's so much like juxtaposing. Oh, you hate that word. Comparing.
Thank you.
Comparing like the school and what's going on there to what they're doing, and specifically the scenes where the teachers are like teaching and the kids are sleeping. But even the way the teachers are teaching, for example, the economics teacher, he says anyone, but like never lets anyone answer and just keeps going, and it's like he's just drolling on like about what he has to teach without actually teaching them. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with the English teacher. He like kind of tries to make a thing on the board, like it's like, what's this book have to say about prison, and like starts doing bars across it and making it look like a jail cell, but they're not really teaching anything. And I was wondering if that beginning part was like a commentary on like American education, I guess, and how, like, the way the teaching system is going. It's just people sitting there listening to, like, them listening and then highlighting them being out in the city and, like, seeing the culture and comparing that to school.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I bet that's definitely intentional on John Hughes' part.
I wonder what John Hughes thought about high school.
I don't think he liked it. I mean, I could sort of. I mean, that's based on all of his movies, but I'm pretty sure I've heard him say that as well, that he didn't like high school.
Yeah. I hated high school, so I'll just make a bunch of high school movies.
Boom. Why not?
Boom.
I really appreciate that there's someone out there that, like, was committed to doing that, to telling stories from, like, kids and, like, teenagers' perspective in a like a legitimate way.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm glad that we both came around to this.
Yeah.
Like, we both love the movie now. It's because it's great.
It is great.
I was nervous about seeing this again for the podcast because I didn't want to tear this movie apart.
Yeah. And I think there are still
great.
things that you could tear apart. I still think there isn't that much of a plot. It's definitely more character driven than plot driven, but that's kind of just what the movie is.
Yeah. And if you don't like Ferris, if you don't like Cameron, I can't imagine you enjoying any part of this movie.
Yeah.
So it's a really big buy in the beginning. Yeah. You have to like that Ferris is the way that he is and that he's going to talk to the camera the whole time. You really have to sort of like buy into that or the movie is not going to work.
Yeah.
All right. Topic time?
Topic time. So there were a lot of movies in the 80s. There were.
Just like any other decade.
Just like every decade, you know?
So we are going to sort of synthesize this conversation about 80s movies to Google's top 5 80s movies. I Googled 80s movies, and Google has them sort of listed. And so Coleman's going to try to guess the top 5 80s movies according to Google.
To Google.
So go for it.
I'm going to say Breakfast Club.
That is number 1.
Of course
Good guess.
Who else would think anything like that? I'll say Ferris Bueller's. I think Ferris Bueller's is in there.
Show me Ferris Bueller. That's number 2.
All right.
Good guess.
This next one, it's a tough, but I'm going to go with 16 Candles.
Ooh. That clocks in at number 5. Still on the list, though.
Still on the list.
Good for
That's
you.
all
And
that matters.
Let's note that those 3 are all John Hughes movies.
I know.
Amazing.
Gosh darn it. I can't remember the title of the next one I was going to guess.
Well, what's the movie?
I don't know. He rides a lawnmower at the end.
I can't remember what it is either. I know what you're talking about, though. That's really funny.
I'm guessing
it's Easy A. They do that at Easy A.
Yes, but that's not easy. Goodness. I don't know. This is cheating, but Back to the Future.
It's not on there.
Yeah.
Which is terrible. Back to the Future. Come on. It's like that is. Back to the Future should be in the top 5. It's not even like top 10. It's ridiculous.
Well, I've run out of John Hughes movies, so I'm pretty much out of luck. What are the other 2?
All right. Number 3 is The Goonies.
Oh, dang. Yeah.
Which I have never seen.
Ooh, perfect for the podcast.
I know. And I feel like people really love that movie. And I've not been quick to admit that I haven't seen it.
Well, it's another one that I was underwhelmed with, so there you go.
Ooh, okay. I'll check it out. And then number 4 is E.T.
Okay, of course.
Which I'm fine with it being in the top 5. I'm not fine with Back to the Future not being in the top 10.
Whatever, E.T. is freaking weird.
Which movie is weird?
E.T. is freaking weird.
That's true. Yeah, there have always been parts of that movie that like really sort of creep me out, especially when I was a kid. And now it's just kind of like this. Why is this in here? It might be a good one to do for the podcast, but yeah, we read the script in college, and I was like, well, this is a great script, but this still is kind of weird. But people really love E.T.
Yeah, they do.
So okay, so these top 5 movies: The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, The Goonies, E.T., and 16 Candles.
Who directs the Goonies? Does it say? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see. Let's give it a little clickety click, and it was Richard Donner.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the guy that directed Superman, right?
Was he?
Yeah,
probably. Mm-hmm. I don't know who directed Superman.
So those are like, I don't know. Do you think this is fair? Like these 5 movies, sort of the top of the list for 80s movies. Like I guess. I don't know. I need to see the Goonies. That's the only one that I'm sort of questioning.
You're just bitter.
I am bitter because I want Back to the Future to be part of this list.
I mean, it's tough to say. It's opinionated, obviously. But I definitely think John Hughes made most of the best 80s movies, so.
But is it opinionated when Google is like, these are going to be the top 5 because these are the ones that people search the most?
I mean, yeah. If you don't think they're the top 5, then what's it matter who clicks the most? Just because most people like it the most.
Yeah.
Which one would you trade off? I know you haven't seen the Goonies, so that's not fair. So we could probably have this conversation after you've seen the Goonies too. But right now,
I would probably switch off like, okay, I really do like 16 Candles a lot, but one of those last 3, Goonies, E.T., or 16 Candles, I could easily see any of them being switched out for Back to the Future, or like Ghostbusters, or Empire Strikes Back was in the 80s, Dirty Dancing. You know, there's lots of great 80s movies that I feel like, or Indiana Jones. Come on. I guess Indiana Jones doesn't feel like an 80s movie.
Yeah, I think it's because these are mostly not really, maybe the Goonies a little bit, but these are more, well, even the Goonies is still like a growing up tale, but it's they revolve around like children in high school, not the Goonies, but not even E.T., I guess, but still children, just like a coming of age tale, I suppose, is pretty much all of them.
Yeah, that's true. All of these movies, even like the 6th and 7th ones, which are Stand By Me and Pretty in Pink and Footloose, they're all like high school-ish. That's interesting. I wonder if this list... I'll let you finish.
I was just going to keep singing while you were talking, if that was fine.
Good. But I wonder if this is like... The reason that Google has them in this order is because of the recent like surge of Stranger Things references.
I'm surprised Goonies didn't make it up to 1 at this point, if that's the case.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
It might be. But, I mean, those... Maybe not, though, because the high school ones aren't anything like Stranger Things, I would say.
I guess.
I think Goonies is really the only one that's a lot like it.
E.T. for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's true. E.T. for sure.
And Stand By Me. Well, that one's 6. But yeah, those 3 I think definitely influenced Stranger Things.
Will Wheaton's in Stand By Me.
Of course he is.
Also, can we watch Footloose? Because every time I watch it and the angry dad is there saying they can't dance. I always go, Lord Farquaad! He huffed and he puffed and he signed an eviction notice.
Good. Yeah, sure. We can do Footloose.
I'd probably do the same thing in season 4 of Dexter, which I still haven't seen. So.
Oh, the best season of Dexter.
Oh, well. I don't know. It might be because of the surge since Stranger Things, but I don't know. It's hard to tell because 3 of them are still John Hughes high school coming of age tales. No weird stuff. No Stranger Things in it, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, that's true. No
aliens, no psychic powers. Just good old-fashioned teenage angst.
Teenage angst and drama. Man, okay, now I'm just looking at the rest of this list, and I was like, this is tough, because there were obviously so many amazing movies in the 80s, like The Terminator, or Die Hard, or Risky Business, or...
This is why I think our topic
Science,
time really should have been 80s movies. Do they hold up?
All right, well, we will definitely revisit 80s movies, for sure, when we... and we'll come back and do it justice, because Google... I don't think you're doing the 80s movies justice.
We will be the deciders on if 80s movies hold up or not. The number one opinion authoritative opinion on the matter.
I don't feel great about the fact that Fast Times at Ridgemont High is so high on this list.
Wow.
I don't remember loving that movie. I just remember it being on and just like, okay.
Do you remember loving Ferris Bueller?
I liked it. I always liked it. But now I really love it.
No, I'm telling you, almost every 80s movie I watched when I was younger, like seeing it for the first time, got the same feeling of, oh, that wasn't as good as I expected. Compared to what everyone said.
That's crazy.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all of them. So you know what that means, right?
We got to do all
We
those.
have to watch every single one on this podcast.
Should we do Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that way late. You know that. The first time I watched it was with you like a year ago.
Yeah.
Excellent.
What a movie.
It seems we have digressed yet again. As we do every
probably.
week.
But I need to see Blade Runner, especially before the new Blade Runner.
Oh, well, me too.
That is an 80s classic I have not seen.
Me as well. I'm afraid because I've heard it's so boring, but I've also heard it's so good. So I've really
always been
curious.
torn because, like in film school specifically, we like talked a lot about how the director and the studio had very different visions for the movie. So apparently there's a theatrical cut, there's a director's cut, and there's like several other versions of the movie you could watch. I don't know which one to watch.
Google it. Google knows all the answers. Has the top 5 80s movies, and it'll tell you how to watch movies. The time of my life. Never felt this way before. Man, just watch all the 80s movies with all the 80s music. We talked about Disney music last week, 80s music this week.
Yeah. I wish for the podcast we could end on a freeze frame. What a bummer that we can't do that.
Yeah, because we don't have frames.
Audio medium.
We should have gone with YouTube. Which we are on YouTube, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Just freeze frame something on there.
Okay. All right. I think that's the show.
I think it is too. Ferris Bueller. It's a bye.
Next week, we are going to be talking about 10 Things I Hate About You. Another high school movie just a decade later.
90s high school movies.
But it's based on The Taming of the Shrew. So you get some Shakespeare, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. We'll watch it and we'll find out. So you can check that out on Netflix and tune in next week.
I've seen 10 Things I Hate About You probably a million times. So.
Oh, really? I saw it a ton, like, when I was a kid. I have not seen it recently.
Well, then it should be an interesting episode.
Yeah, tune in next week, y'all. Subscribe. That'd be great. You'll get it right away. If you subscribe, I'm pretty sure you get it a little earlier than everybody else does.
Privileged.
So, there you go. You can check out the description for a lot of other great stuff. You can check out our YouTube exclusive mini episodes, which do have frames. So you can check that over there.
True.
And if you want to support the podcast, it'd be great if you could write us an iTunes review. That's an awesome way for us to rise up in the ranks of iTunes and get seen by more people. And what's your favorite 80s movie? Why are you outraged by Google's list? Because I sort of am. So let us know what your favorite 80s movie is, and you can tweet at us. Our Twitter handles are in the description with a lot of other great stuff. So yeah, do that, and that would be great. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We'll see y'all next week.
See ya.
Next week.
See ya.
Next week.